Back in the Bronx. Welcome back to another episode of Trigger Warning. I'm your host, Kim Osorio, and I'm here with my co-host today, TT Torrez.
I am back.
Oh, you're back.
I'm here. Welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in.
I'm so glad that you're back for
I
so
know.
many reasons. It was so hard. So you know my daughter, Kayla, sat in on the last episode. Shout out to Kayla. She had a really good time. She was really happy to see herself on the podcast and do this. Because you know she did this in college.
Yeah.
But for me, I couldn't have that conversation with her. I felt like super stiff. I was like, Kayla, so because I didn't, it's hard to talk to your kid about stuff. And
yeah,
it's hard
because
to be
it was
real.
also the day after the election, right? So that was a tough podcast.
And I was trying to be a responsible mother. I was trying to like ask her how she was feeling and give her the right answers. But like in my head, I was like, if TT was here, I think I would be completely different.
It happens. Well, I'm back. I wasn't here the last episode because I was actually at Somos in Puerto Rico, which is where, you know, all the political figures attend. So that was a very tough day after the election to go there and have to advocate and, you know, push for some of the things that we need in government.
Yes.
So that was tough knowing what had happened.
Right.
And then today is tough. I almost canceled today because...
How are you feeling?
So I have a lot of things going on, which is crazy. First, let's talk about why my speech is like this. So, you know, I went to the dentist for an annual visit, a cleaning, you know, regular procedure, and they saw a bump on the back of my tongue. And so out of precaution, they wanted to do a biopsy just to make sure it's not cancerous, right? So I went yesterday to get the biopsy done. I didn't realize how painful it was going to be until after that anesthesia wore off. I thought I was like going to die. My tongue was like so swollen and so painful. And they prescribed me Oxy and ibuprofen because I don't like taking Oxy. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I just don't like it at all. I had an experience with it when I had to get my appendix removed. And I felt I was hearing voices. It was just bad. So ever since then, I was like, I don't know how people get addicted to this medication. I don't like it. But I was in excruciating pain yesterday, and the ibuprofen wasn't working. So I took one of those yesterday, and then I slept it off. After I spoke to you, I slept it off. And then I woke up this morning, and I took a couple more ibuprofens, and I just tried to sleep it off. Because, you know, I talk for a living. That's my job
This
on the
is
radio.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to do the best that I can.
But that's today. So earlier in the day, you know, I'm on the radio,
for
5 hours, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on High 97. So it's a bad time to have it. But so I had someone cover for me today. And then, you know, I'm just like, a couple of things I told my doctor. I want to be healed by Thanksgiving. So tomorrow I have a turkey drive in the Bronx at Tracy Towers from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So I have to do that. And then I had this, and I'm like, I got so much going on. So on top of having to get this biopsy, that happened yesterday. I had to be at my podiatrist at 8 a.m. this morning to get a steroid shot in my shoulder. So I had to get an MRI on my shoulder and on my spine because I was having so much pain.
You were saying that the last time we talked about your shoulder, I don't know if you said what was wrong.
Yeah, they thought it was a rotated cuff.
All right.
But long story short, it's not. It's called frozen shoulder.
Frozen shoulder.
It's a medical mystery on how you get it.
Right.
So basically, the ligaments freeze underneath the underneath your rotative cuff. And it happens primarily in women. So when I was going through PT, because they thought it was a rotated cuff, my trainer kept saying, this seems like frozen shoulder, because when he would go in and have to do the massages and all of that stuff, he's like, this is not your rotated cuff. I'm telling you, this is frozen shoulder. So I went back to my doctor because it kept getting progressively worse. And then my arm just started stiffening up. So I have to, if you see me doing this, it's because it's an exercise I have to do. So now I'm in the phase of literally where it's stiff. So I did the MRI and for the shoulder and the neck on Saturday. So I had to go this morning because he found out it is frozen shoulder. So he gave me a steroid shot to kind of, you know, ease the pain a little bit, get the ligaments moving again, because it's like chicken. he says it could take up to 2 years for this frozen shoulder to thaw out.
Oh, gosh.
Because it's like a thickness in the joints, like a thickness, like an inflammation happened, and then it thickened like frozen meat. Think of it like that. And it takes time to thaw out. So not only am I in pain in my mouth, but I'm also in pain in my shoulder. And I'm just like...
It sounds horrible.
It is horrible.
It sounds horrible. I'm sorry.
horrible.
I came in here before we started taping, just so that everybody knows. I came in here with my whirlwind of a day to TT like, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening, this is happening, that's happening. And you're over here like, I can't move my shoulder, and they cut my tongue.
And they cut my tongue, and I can't do anything about it. But
I feel so crazy. I feel so bad.
I know. I just want to I want to get through the turkey drive tomorrow, and I just want to shut down for the next couple of days. Like, I was supposed to have an event tonight. I was supposed to go to a big art event last night, and I just told everybody, like, I have to shut my body down.
Yeah, you have to shut down. You have to rest.
Because I've been, like, going
going, and that's how we are in this industry. It doesn't matter what's happening to us. We're like, we got to keep going.
Yeah, and the month of December, I'm just totally shutting it down. Like, I'm out. I have to recoup my body.
So, last night when you told me, I felt so crazy. But when you said they cut my tongue.
I can show you the stitches, but it's kind of gross.
I bet it's kind of gross. Oh my God, I can see a little bit of it. Oh my God. I think about when I bite my tongue and I'm like, and it's like the smallest little bite with like blood, and you're like, ah, and your tongue is in pain. And then I started thinking about, this is gonna be really gross. I started thinking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You ever watch Game of Thrones and they're like cutting people's tongues off, and you're like, that's
so the needle was like, both needles for my shoulder and for my tongue was like this big. And when she stuck that needle in my tongue, I was like, oh, she's like,
felt it.
I know.
So they don't numb it?
No, they numb it with the needle. So they numb it with the needle. And then she takes this, you can't feel the actual pain of the cutting, but you feel the scissors, and it's icky because you're like, you can't, it's like right here. So I'm like, I just had to shut my eyes because I see a piece of my tongue getting cut, and it's ick.
God.
I got the ick. So I just started like, I almost started to like,
pass out.
You know, anxiety, like my chest started like, like, cause I'm like looking at her cutting, and
tongue.
I'm just like, ooh, and then she's like, breathe, 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 and then I just like, okay, I just shut my eyes because I couldn't even like watch any more of this, what's going on with me. So I just was like,
that sounds excruciating. I'm sorry.
Afterwards, like when it was happening,
horrible.
you don't feel it, but when that anesthesia wore
Set
off, I was like, I was telling my husband, oh my God, I'm in so much pain.
Well,
I'm in so much pain.
Have you ever had your wisdom teeth pulled?
No.
Okay.
That's a lot of pain?
Let me say something. I said that was the worst pain. Only one, I have had all 4 pulled. I have a small mouth.
Yeah.
But when I have my wisdom teeth pulled, they pulled these 2 on one day, and they pulled these 2 on another day, right? Oh, well, you know, we're going to give you a little break. So they pulled the top, and the top was fine. I had the, you know, anesthesia. I'm like sitting there like, okay, you know, I can see him in there. When they got to the bottom one, it was impacted, and it was stuck to my jaw. Oh. So now I thought everything is numb. So I'm sitting there like, you know, he's going to pull it out. And it got stuck to my, I like literally saw this orthodontist, like he like spread his like legs, like and got into like a football stance. He was like in a football stance. And he went in, and I just looked like, what is happening? And he went to yank it out. It was stuck to my jaw. It was like a half a second, but in that half a second, it was like the worst pain. Like I likened it to childbirth. Yeah. I likened it to childbirth. And I was like, because he had to like separate the tooth from my jaw.
Right? You got in shock?
Girl.
Yeah, I know. Like, because when I saw the actual scissors go, I was like, I got the ick.
Yeah. Because it's the anxiety too. Yeah, so they didn't knock you out for that.
No. They didn't knock me out.
We're just going to cut your tongue. We'll give you a little shot.
Yeah, it's just a little piece of it.
We'll just cut your tongue off.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway.
It feels better now, though? Like you can feel it getting better?
I can feel it getting better. Still painful, but the key is you can't let the ibuprofen wear off. So like every 2 hours, you got to just keep it going until, because the minute you let it stretch, that's when the pain just like hit you out of nowhere.
Sounds horrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
But I'm here.
You are here.
I'm here.
I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, we got a lot to get into, though.
We got so much to get into.
Yeah, because I didn't get to talk to you about that election. The post-election.
Okay.
People are still talking about it. And I saw this report. It's so crazy because I was reading The Guardian today, right? And it's interesting that I read this, and I knew I had a feeling that this was going to happen. So The Guardian reported that Donald Trump said on Monday that his administration would declare a national emergency and use the U.S. military to carry out mass deportations of undocumented immigrants.
Okay. So now here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say, because, and when Kayla was here, I was trying to manage the emotions around it, because her generation and people, you know, on people that she knows, they were all in this sort of slump of like, oh, this is the worst thing. And I feel like we have to get out of that, right? But, so I've kind of detached from the political media. Like, I'm like, I cannot read another horrible thing that he's going to do or that I perceive that he's going to do. Because with the separation of powers, some of these things he can't really do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, a lot of these things he can, though, because remember, Republicans can now control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and he stacked the Supreme Court.
Right.
So a lot of this is working in his favor. And like you, I kind of pulled away from a lot of it just to give myself a break. But I'm also conscious and aware of what's going on. And, you know, I know a lot of people during the first in 2016 who actually experienced the roughness of the immigration thing that they were doing, and how ICE was camping out in Long Island outside of jails and different things of that nature, trying to catch these undocumented immigrants, and how a lot of them were on DACA programs, and they tried to stop DACA programs and all these things that were happening. But what's interesting to me is like how some Latinos who know they have undocumented family members still voted for Trump and thought that their family members would be safe, which is crazy to me. Like, seeing some of the comments and what they had to say, it's like, you really were like not paying attention, because he is doing exactly what he says he is going to do. And do you understand what that means for the U.S. military, a national state of emergency? The U.S. military is going to do what the president tells them to do. It's a scary place to be.
It is a scary place. I'm just very, I want to be optimistic, right? So I feel like a lot of this is the media hyping up things for these emotions, for, you know, like they're pulling at our emotions for their own political agenda. So I have to do more research in terms of the immigration laws, right? Because I'm like, for him to be so aggressive about that, I think he's trying to follow through on some of the promises that he made
on the campaign trail.
On the campaign trail to his supporters, right? But I'm like, is he really gonna do that? Like, I really don't want it to happen.
But you know what's crazy? But you know what's crazy? That is exactly what some of his Latino supporters are coming out saying now. Is he, like, they don't really think that this is going to happen, or like this is.
I hope it doesn't. I was very surprised by the amount of Latinos who came out in support of Trump. And I didn't look at the demo for like where they were mostly coming from in the country. Because I said to Kayla when we were here, I was like, that's not in New York, right? Because I felt like in New York, you know, being that it's a blue state, I didn't see record numbers in New York.
Bronx.
I know.
There was a lot of Latino men in the Bronx that
voted for him.
But you know what's interesting about all of this, and I think what disappointed me the most about this election, and the reason why I identified so much and I think why a lot of women of color identify so much with the loss is because we all have been in that situation where you could be overly qualified for a job, right? You can put the work in, you could be doing the job, and they will still discredit you.
It's a disappointment.
It's
a disappointment.
It's a huge disappointment. And then when you see his cabinet picks, you're like,
yeah,
are you
But
kidding me?
I
like the Fox News correspondent,
No. I saw that.
Elon Musk.
I saw that. It was a lot. Yeah.
The deficient, whatever his efficiency, whatever the heck he's trying to do. And it's like, do you guys realize Elon Musk has like mad government contracts?
Yeah,
There's so much layers to this that I'm like, guys, if you voted for Trump was based on the economy, you think you're gonna benefit from this new government that's coming in?
Yeah.
With a bunch of billionaires and some of the richest people in the world, and you're gonna benefit? Like when I was at Somos, right? And I was there advocating for health equity, Medicaid equity for all. And if the numbers in New York on how many Latinos depend on Medicaid.
Yeah.
And how disappointing it was to stand in front of all those elected officials who all came out and said, we know we have a fight ahead of us to get this equity for our community. And it's going to be a tough hill battle.
Yeah.
And these are people who depend on this.
Well, I definitely feel like just as a woman, and many women I think feel this way, you've been in, especially if you've been in situations where you've been overlooked for an opportunity based on being a woman. I've been in rooms full of men and work environments where it's obvious that you're in a silo and you're over here with your opinion, and it's like you can't get your perspective to be understood. I want to talk about that too. I just had a conversation last night. I'll get to that, just being the only woman in the room. But I feel like it's something we've been dealing with professionally, since the dawn of time, really since the dawn of time. So there was hope in seeing her be so qualified. And I think we all kind of poured into that, having a woman of color run for presidency and against someone that, after his presidency, I don't think anyone really thought we were going to have that threat again, right? Like after his presidency, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe we had Trump as president. We survived that. Like, that's what I felt like the general consensus was in the country. I was not aware, and this is what I think is, most damaging to us, right? I was not aware that so many people would be against putting a woman of color, because I thought it wouldn't be that hard to beat Trump after his last term. I'm thinking even when he was talking about running in 2024, when he lost the election in 2020 and was talking about running in 2024, we were all kind of like, I thought that people, not just people who voted against him initially, but even people who voted for him in 2016, I thought that people were done with him, especially with everything that he was facing in terms of the his criminal convictions. And I thought people were done. So I'm like, y'all really just didn't want a woman of color in there.
So now that you have a convicted felon
right,
as the president of the United States of America,
right,
then all people who have been convicted of a felony should be able to get a job with no discrimination.
Should be.
That should come off all applications.
We will say should be.
Should be, right? That should come off. If someone who holds the highest office can get a job as a convicted felon, then shouldn't there be some type of law passed to allow for folks who may have had a criminal record be able to get a sustainable job?
So Can y'all hear my phone buzzing like that? It's stressing me out. Sorry, it's the kids again.
Speaking of felons,
the
kids are always...
Stop texting right now.
It's the kids.
Let me just
Speaking of convicted felons, I want to shift a little bit from politics because we got a lot to talk about.
We do. I'm gonna put my phone
here. One of these topics that I want to get into is Lil Durk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring this up because I wrote this down. That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because I'm very sad. I mean, listen, I kind of saw this. I saw this coming.
Right.
And
we didn't get a chance to talk about this when it was...
So Lil Durk, he pleaded not guilty to all the charges and is scheduled to appear in court for trial on January 7th, according to the Los Angeles federal court documents, right? But he has been indicted on new charges last week, which includes conspiracy, carrying and using firearms, including a machine gun, and possession of firearms in a crime that resulted in death, weeks after his arrest on charges of conspiracy to use interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death. Now, according to the court documents, they say Lil Durk and his co-defendants, if they are convicted, the statutory maximum sentence is of life in a federal prison. So...
Maximum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the alleged murder for hire plot was hatched as a retaliation for the 2020 murder of Lil Durk's colleague and friend, which is King Von.
Yep.
According to these court documents, they said that Lil Durk attempted to flee to the United States prior to his arrest. But that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like he was about to go on a run.
Well, his co-defendants, members of his crew, were arrested first.
And then he knew they were coming after
So, right. Like, I'm sure he got the heads up. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming he got the heads up before they came for him. And he was arrested, I believe, close to an airport.
Yeah.
So
In Florida.
They were saying that he was trying to flee and there were different tickets purchased. So it was almost like, this is what prosecutors allege.
Yeah.
That there were tickets, I haven't seen it.
3 different flights.
Right, 3 different flights were purchased, commercial, private, right? So they're like, oh, he's trying to flee. But there were things, according to that case, that were alleged that I just thought were...
Stupid?
Yes, very stupid. Let's just say what it is, right?
Very stupid.
Like he's going to have a tough time, I think.
Beating
He's got to get some really good lawyers, right?
Well,
like they used the business credit cards to buy ski masks. They used the business credit cards to buy flights. It just...
He has a good lawyer. I forgot his lawyer's name, but he's pretty legit.
I'm sure he does.
He's pretty legit. I forgot his name. God, it's killing me, but he's pretty legit.
He got the money. I'm sure he better lawyer up.
But it is crazy when you read the indictment how reckless he was in this alleged murder for hire.
Right.
Like the stuff that he was like texting back and forth, you know, the emails that were sent, the flights that were booked on company credit cards. Like, I'm sorry, but Lil Durk has to be one of the dumbest criminals I've ever come across. If this indictment
if
is
it's
real.
true, so let me say that it's alleged. If it's true, the thing that I kind of wanted to discuss was how bloggers, do we call them bloggers, streamers, were breaking down his lyrics. Almost, it's like y'all doing cop work out there. Like showing how what he said in the record would somehow match up if this were the case. Like to me, I'm like, you're building the Fed's case right there.
But see, that's what they do because everything is about, you know, rage blogging and, you know, everything's about getting people to engage in your content by any means necessary.
Right, but it's also about nowadays, and this is what artists have to be mindful of, especially rap artists, right? Because rap is supposed to be...
Because they're trying to use your lyrics in court. That's what happened with Young Thug.
And rap is a reflection of what's really going on. Supposedly, we can go back to the whole keep it in real mantra in hip hop, right? Like everything you say, you're supposed to be authentic and you're supposed to mean what you say. So if you're saying this stuff on your records and the prosecutor can argue, like the audience believes this, they're saying that they did it. Like I remember when, I think it was Fannie Willis said, if you talk about it in your records, I'm going to use it in court.
Well, but at the end of the day, it didn't work out for Fannie Willis' favor, even though Thug pleaded out, but he still pleaded out to no time.
Right.
So,
right.
It is free speech, so I kind of feel like that's a gray area when it comes to hip hop. It's free speech, and it's like it's so many writers and so many people that cap in their rhymes.
It's an art form.
It is an art form.
But
if you're stupid enough to go
art
shoot
imitates
someone,
life, imitates art.
But if you're stupid enough to shoot someone at 220 and they can prove it, and then you rap
about
it and say,
then you're
hey,
rapping
I was
about it. Now they're
outside of the
use
bodega on 100 and da-da-da-da-da, and I shot such and such at 220 in the head and blah, 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 blah. Then you just...
Right, but this is what I'm saying. Like, there comes a point, yes, I was saying art imitates life, imitates art, right? So it's like there's a point where you have to, and I support free speech and I support, right, like this creative expression, but at a certain point, if things are happening that you're saying in your raps, you gotta expect that the government is paying attention and
what
watching.
You put on the internet. The internet is the FBI's internet. It is the playground for detectives, police officers, and the FBI. So anything you put in someone's DMs or you thought, you could put in your stories or on your Snapchat or whatever, it is all subject to get subpoenaed. It does not go away.
Right.
And the last point I want to make here, this is a very important point. You cannot be a rap superstar and a street criminal at the same time. Eventually, those two worlds will collide. You have to draw the line in the sand and say, what is it that I want to be? I want to establish myself as an artist, a global superstar, and move away from that life. Because you can't be, I'm this, I'm touring, I'm doing this, and still be a gangster, killing, shooting, and doing stupid shit. It's never going to work. I've seen this happen thousands of times over. But I've also seen artists who come from the streets, make it in a game, and change their lives around. And I love that for them. But you cannot have it both ways. You can't have one foot in and one foot out. There has to be a complete transition. And I know that takes time for folks to do that, but you got to do it.
Well, I think that's a good segue to our next topic, because we're talking about Lil Durk, a younger artist, right? Granted, I'm not sure of his exact age, but younger than I would say, the pioneers of our culture now in hip hop. When you think about
Diddy,
I was going to get to Diddy. I was going to mention a few, because we've heard some people like Jay-Z talk about changing his life, right? Because he talks about what he supposedly used to do in the streets.
And he's the
50
blueprint.
Cent. He talks about what he used to do in the streets,
and he's the
right?
blueprint.
Everyone has this street credibility that they've used to transition into their now new businessman persona, right? It's like, sometimes the rap game reminds me of the crack game. That's what they said.
A lot of it, in the beginnings of this thing called rap, a lot of this stuff was funded from street money because you could not go to the bank and get loans. It was very difficult for black and brown people, and it was very difficult for black and brown people to get signed to these labels. They wasn't signing rap music in the beginning, guys. This was not a thing. This was when Jay and all these guys came out. There was this
right, but
thing.
there was
they
a
funded
path.
a lot of that, and they created the path to success.
Right.
So what I'm saying now is, to your point, the Jays, the 50s, they're the blueprints. They're the ones who have made it out, including Diddy,
I was going to say,
including Diddy.
can we still say that right now? Can we still say that right now with what we're seeing and what we're dealing with?
Because Diddy's choices came back to haunt him because apparently and allegedly he did not stop. He became two different people. Two different people. Let me hide behind Diddy, and then I'm really being this person allegedly behind closed doors, right? And then you see now what's happening with him in the most recent update with the guards allegedly finding stuff and prosecutors filing that new motion.
Well, prosecutors say they have notes that can show that or present a strong inference that Diddy is trying to tamper with witnesses.
I don't believe that.
That's what they're saying.
I don't believe the notes thing. I saw that. I don't believe that. I think that's the prosecutors trying to
build their case,
get a media attention to ruin the jury pool.
Right.
You know,
to taint the jury pool. Yeah.
Right. I don't believe that part. Now, the part where he was allegedly putting money on inmates' commissaries so that they can make three-way calls to other people. Now, if that was happening, those calls coming out of MCC, Manhattan Correctional, is it MC or MCC? Those calls will be recorded. Right. They will 1,000% are recorded, and they will catch him if he did that. And if he did do that, then you're just stupid.
Is he though?
If you're making three-way calls to tamper with witnesses on such a high-profile case, that's just dumb, Kim.
Because his attorneys,
if that happened,
his attorneys are arguing that that's privileged information. So whatever notes they found, they're saying attorney-client privilege, right? And I don't know how the judge will rule, but it's if
how
they
is
can.
That attorney-client privilege? He was writing that for his attorney?
I'm not sure, but I said whatever notes he had, right? That's their argument. And if that's the case, then you can't present it in court, right? It's not gonna make it into the case.
I just don't believe Diddy is sitting in his jail writing notes about people he paid off and all.
No, I don't think that's. I don't know what they have though, because they didn't specify exactly what they have.
They said that
notes.
He was writing notes in prison and that.
It's a lot. It's definitely a lot of speculation.
I believe that's BS.
And I do believe both sides, both prosecutors, both his attorneys, are playing with the media.
Yeah.
I think that they're doing that because the court of public opinion is oftentimes even more important than when you're in court, especially when you're trying to taint the jury pool, because you can't tell me that he's going to get a jury that hasn't seen all this stuff.
Right,
everyone
especially
has seen
the video of Cassie that went viral and millions of people watched it. That's tainting the jury pool.
Who's going to get on the jury that hasn't seen that?
That 1-800 lawsuit claim that lawyer did out of Texas that
and
went
now
viral.
they filed a suit against that lawyer.
Right.
They did. Yeah. So there's all these
they're just
lawsuits all over the place.
It's tainting the jury pool. How is he expected to get a fair trial?
I don't know. It's so messy. His case is so messy.
It's so deep. But I did watch the Shyne documentary last night.
Oh, did you?
I did.
I interviewed him.
I know. I saw.
Did you see the clips?
What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts on that. I thought it was a great interview. It was a great interview. Thank you to Shyne. I haven't finished watching the doc. I started watching the documentary, but I couldn't finish. I was at the HBCU Honors last week taping, so I worked that show. That's going to come out on December 1st on BET. Make sure you watch it. Great performance by Fantasia. I mean, all of the performers were great. Erica Campbell, her daughter, amazing. Anyway, that was a shameless plug. But I was there, so I was trying to watch the Shyne documentary in pieces, and I haven't finished, but I saw a good amount of it, right? And so I really wholeheartedly believe that everyone should be given the opportunity to tell their side of the story, right? I do. There have been people who have called me after the interview we did on My Expert Opinion, the Mav Hoffa podcast, and said that they don't believe Shyne, that they have their own story, that they remember it differently. one of those people, even before we did the interview, was Funk Master Flex. So, you know, Flex said what he said, and Shyne responded on our platform, and it was like the numbers jumped because everyone wanted to hear what Shyne had to say. It's really his word, Flex's word against Shyne's word. So, like, I just feel like he has a right to tell his side of the story as well. And that is his side of the story.
Well, I will say this, watching that documentary, a lot of folks were giving Shyne a bad rep about the documentary, saying, you know, you're kicking Puff's back in when he's down. But if you watch the documentary, it really wasn't that.
No, it wasn't.
It was very inspirational in terms of, like, everything he had to go through in life to get to the point where he is a rapper, not feeling safe because of the incident that took place outside of Daddy's house where allegedly Junior Mafia, C is in the video, got into an altercation where allegedly they shot at him.
Right.
And,
then
the
that's
story that I was always told was that they were upset that he sounded like Biggie. This is what I've always been told throughout my
insider info here,
you know,
guys.
Life here, you know, in the music industry.
Yes.
And they were jealous of his success, so they wanted to end it because they felt like he was trying to be Biggie. And
did C say that in the doc? Because I didn't see that part.
Well, no, he didn't say. What he said in the doc was they were childish.
Right.
They were young and they went through an incident. He didn't get into much detail, but that's
what was word on the street.
Yeah,
that's
throughout
what the
years,
streets were
that's
saying.
kind of the reason they got into that situation. So that's what prompted Shyne to always carry a gun with him because he never felt safe, and he was like this guy, you know, now he's a millionaire and he's selling millions of records, and, you know, so that's how he was able to get the guns in the club or whatever. But what was very, very interesting in the documentary is the victim who got shot in the face and got her nose disfigured. They played clips of her interviews. She's always
said that it was
that Puff was the one who shot her.
Always, yes.
Always
I said this a
that.
couple of years ago. And let me just say this. Because a lot of people are saying that what you just said, you started off by talking about how people were saying that Shyne was kicking his back in. One of the things that I do know is that Shyne has been working on this story and this doc pre-Diddy's case. Yes, of course, when a company gets a hold of that and this happens, the machine is going to get behind what they believe is going to, you know, they're going to profit off of. So, of course, they're going to push it harder now, and they're going to rush to get it out because of what we're seeing with Diddy.
And he did address that in the documentary.
He's been telling that story. He's been trying to tell his whole story for a while.
But he also said that, which I found interesting in the documentary, he also said that he was not the only one to pull out guns. He didn't dismiss the fact that he pulled out his gun to defend himself because the person who actually pulled out his gun allegedly first was his friend. And he knew what type of
time they were on.
Yeah, he knew what type of time they were on because he was from the streets, his friend.
Scar,
yeah. Yes. So when he threw the money, and that ego comes in, because that's the most disrespectful thing that a person can do to another man. Like, that's like, and then back then, you got to know the culture of what the game was in hip hop. Not so much now, but back then, when you went into the clubs and stuff like that, it was all about the flash, right? Like, how many bottles you got, how many bad chicks you got. Like, it was a thing back then. Like, you would be at a section 30, 40 bottles. And here you have street dudes, you have industry dudes, you have gangsters. Like, that was like, and that came from like the Nicky Barnes era. Like, you know, it was a thing in New York culture to be like that dude, right? So I can see how that situation escalated when the money was thrown, and you know, they felt disrespected, and then, you know, his friend is like, oh, you riding with Diddy? Da 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 da. Like, you come from my block, and then he pulls out his guns, but there were other guns that were allegedly pulled, but he never said they were Puff guns in the documentary. Still to this day, and even in the documentary, and even through the court proceedings, he's never snitched. So, like, this idea that he's kicking his back and all this, like Shyne's never snitched. And he's not snitching in the documentary. You pay attention to how he's wording things.
But this way, I've been looking at this case for years. Like, I've been looking at this case for years. A lot of people don't know, and I brought this up on the interview with him. One of the things I read years ago was that, and I don't think they could get this into court, maybe, because it was hearsay, but apparently she said who shot her when she was going into surgery that night. So she was saying it. Some people will argue, well, of course you're going to use him because he's the one with the most money. So that's what some people were saying about why she was saying that. But she's never changed her story.
But the folks that I know who's close to Puff, and even as of recently, say that she was coerced for money. That she was, but that lady has maintained.
Yeah, her story has always been the same.
She's never changed her story. And folks have saying she just basically lied for money, right?
Yeah, well, that's what they always say, right? That's what they said about Cassie when we saw Cassie's lawsuit. It's the same thing. It's always, nobody ever wants to believe a victim, right? It's always like, oh, she must be trying to get money. It's a money grab, right? I mean, I remember I wasn't in Club New York that night. I used to go every Sunday. That was the place to be. Club New York on a Sunday night.
And see, I wasn't old enough to get in those clubs.
Club New York on Sunday.
That was the spot.
We didn't go that weekend, which is crazy to me because when I saw the next day or whenever I heard about it that night.
You didn't go?
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I felt like I had escaped something because we used to go, me and my friend Tia used to go to Club New York. And that night we didn't go. And every weekend, we would see people. I'm sure Shyne was in there. I used to see Shyne all the time, right? But it was so lit that night, right? They were talking about Puff being in there. Puff was, how he was back then. He was in the city. He was outside. Puff was outside. Yeah. Some artists are not. Puff was outside. He had to be in the clubs. And there were a lot of street guys also, always outside. And I think one of the things that they said in the documentary was like, and I can vouch for this. Now, I'm not a street dude trying to throw money and be like, I got money too. I'm good when security pushed me. But what I can vouch for is security is real disrespectful.
They do.
When they're pushing an artist through. I'm not justifying anything, of course. I would never, because I would never justify. But knowing who these guys were, right? Security has always, not everyone. There's some security that understand heightened emotions and what could happen, but security is always pushing through like, excuse me, coming through, like, knocking you over. And I almost feel like some of them actually enjoy that. Like it's part of their job.
And they also want to show
like
how
that.
loyal they are.
Some of y'all like that. Like this whole bossy, like I'm going to push the crowd and part the sea like Moses and make sure, and if you got to douche someone in the head.
You're saying that security could have de-escalated by not going so hard.
I'm saying that in the documentary, what they said that I picked up on was that when they came through, they kind of shoved these dudes, right? Like, or that, like, there was some sort of like thing where the guys were like, yo,
I got just as much money as you.
Something like that
blah, blah.
He's not the only one with money in here, right?
Yeah.
And that's the energy, like, and that's very New York energy.
Yeah.
That's very New York energy. Like, we're pushing through, we in here, Puff is here, watch everybody move to the side. But you don't know who you're doing that to. And, you're in there with street dudes. Now money's getting thrown, escalating, guns are being pulled. Like, this was a big deal back then. This was a huge deal. But here's where it gets crazy to me. They started shooting in a crowded club. They started shooting. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, but because also, now anyone can get it over this egotistical battle of
putting
dollars.
Other people's lives in jeopardy over something that's driven by ego. But what's interesting to me is that Shyne felt like his voice wasn't being heard in the courtroom.
Right.
Like he felt like there were things that his lawyers were not standing up and saying, although Shyne has said multiple times to the judge, I want these lawyers removed off of my case.
Right.
Because he felt like they were only protecting one person and he wasn't being protected. Right. I never knew that Shyne advocated for for
For it,
himself
yes.
to get these lawyers removed off his case.
Yeah.
But these lawyers were obviously paid by Puff's lawyers. And so I found out to be very interesting. But still through it all, he didn't give him up to the feds. He still did not give him up.
He didn't
Although the feds were like, oh, you know.
Yeah, they were trying to get that.
Give us the big guy, which is typical.
Right.
And all of this goes away. He still didn't, even though he felt like he wasn't being properly represented inside that courtroom that day. So.
And I believe he says, I was the fall guy.
Yeah,
right?
He definitely said he felt like he was a fall guy.
And I know a lot of stories like that, actually, you know, and I think that.
So I think it's the right thing to do. If you are going to make someone the fall guy, the right thing to do is to make sure that for the rest of their lives, they're okay. Because only you and him, or you and that person, truly knows what went down.
So.
Not saying that they did, but.
Right. I don't know. That's Shyne's story, right? I think sidebar. Did you see the part where they were talking about Puffy and Wolf going to this? They were going to like this park, and there was a bird.
Yeah.
The ritual stuff always gets me.
But see,
I always get into that stuff. I'm like,
I don't know
what?
how much. Honestly, I don't know how much that stuff is true. I mean, I just try to stay away from that stuff because it's like, how much is that is true? How much of it is sensationalized? This guy does every interview when somebody puts a microphone. I don't. For me, I don't care about that. Like,
I'm always intrigued by those. I mean, that's the time. I'm
also
somebody who watch like sci-fi. I watch a lot of sci-fi.
It was funny
guys.
when
I'm
he
sorry.
said the bird died.
I watch a lot of sci-fi. Like
the bird died, and I was just
intrigued by these type of things. I'm the person that's clicking on that stuff on YouTube. It's me. I'm guilty. I'm clicking on all of the conspiracy theorist stuff. I am guilty of it. So when I saw that, I was like, what?
Yeah,
and that's not the first time I've heard a story like that. I've heard those type of stories in the industry. I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to talk about Illuminati. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say it was in the doc. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, look at the Shyne doc. It was in the doc. There was a story in the doc that was very eerie to me. It was very spooky. It was about a pigeon and a pigeon in the sky and the ground. And the pigeon's dead. I don't know. I thought it was wild.
Yeah,
it was wild.
That
stuff doesn't get you.
No,
that stuff doesn't. You think those are lies?
I just look at it like you're doing too much. Like I don't get caught up in that.
But do you believe
I feel like
it?
No, I don't.
So you think he's lying?
I don't think he's lying. I think he will sensationalize any story that gets in front of him.
So where'd the bird come from?
I have no idea, nor do I care. But I do want to
maybe it was a Central Park pigeon.
Right, exactly.
You're like it's the story's really. They drove up to Central Park and a pigeon was walking by and someone kicked the pigeon. I thought the story was intriguing.
I don't get caught up in that. I just be like, why are you telling us?
I don't know, but it's.
What's the point? You want attention. You want that part to be the thing that people talk about. So look, I want to talk about BMF.
Oh.
Big Meech is out.
Yes.
He took a picture with 50 Cent.
He did. First of all, before we get to the picture, he fixed his teeth. That was a big deal. Him getting veneers. Came out of jail, got a whole set of veneers.
Nice.
You didn't see that?
Nice.
Of course, they be giving free teeth away.
Like crazy. Dentists
be giving free teeth away for the plug. I'm very happy with my teeth. Thank you. I pray to God I, take care of them and continue to take care of them.
So what does that mean for the BMF series?
He got a fresh set of teeth. Which means to me, the teeth means I'm ready to get out there. I'm fixing my teeth. I'm ready to start getting out there, doing interviews. And I haven't seen an interview yet, but we saw the picture.
But interviews on what, like a podcast? Or like
wherever. I mean, the interview space, the podcast space is huge for people to tell their stories and then try to sell those stories into
a book?
Books and films, and that's where everyone is. Everyone has done and obviously Big Meech is a huge figure in street culture, especially connected to hip hop. He's one of the top ones, right?
Yeah.
So I could see his story getting a green light. I mean, it already got a green light on TV, but I could see it going even further, especially if he collaborates with 50. And I think that we all talked about whether or not BMF is coming back for another season. I didn't know. 50 says some things online when Meech's brother did some things online, and he said the show was over. I don't know. It was all speculation. But seeing that photo with him and Meech kind of makes us say, oh, must be a new season of BMF coming. Because what else are they meeting about unless they're doing a movie?
What was the issue with Big Meech's brother and 50 Cent? Was it that he took a picture with 50's ops?
Yes.
And that was the issue, right?
Yes, he took a picture with someone. Supreme's son.
Yeah.
He took a picture with him, and I guess it's, you can't.
Because that's a big deal, by the way.
There's a line in the sand in hip hop.
No, but
and
that
if you stand on one side of the line, you may not talk to people who stand on the other side. I don't know. I guess
that was like that beef was really real. That was a real
I mean,
beef.
it's still real.
Yeah, that was a real beef.
It's still a real situation. I get it, but we're very picky and choosy over who we'll do business with. And what I've learned is that when the right dollar sign is attached, people don't care about these lines in the sand. Mm-hmm. They'll jump back and forth over the line for the dollar.
Nobody cared about integrity or morals, and all they cared about is the price of eggs.
Yeah.
So it's we live in a culture where no one gives a fuck.
Clearly.
Gives a F. We live in a culture where no one cares.
So I think I saw the photo, and that's what I thought. I said, new season coming soon. Which, listen, I'm going to watch. I'm not going to front. I'm going to watch it. But all these guys have these stories that they're trying to put into film and television. And hey, I feel like we all have stories. And the hip hop culture has, I think, been the driving force behind a lot of what we've seen be successful in this film and TV space.
Because we stamp everything we make it cool.
We do. We are really cool.
Like, come on. Cool. Like, think about this Mike
Even
Tyson
as I get older.
Jake Paul thing.
Oh, yeah, that was
Even
fun.
with the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul thing.
Did you think it was staged?
It very well could have been. But we stamped it like it was the coolest thing to watch.
It was kind of cool. But I
was just like, I put on my socials. I stayed up all night to watch it. And first of all, Netflix, you're trash.
Oh, my God. My Netflix was like rebooting. It was crazy.
You're trash.
It was crazy.
I was just like, why? I think for me, I was a little disappointed because, like, Mike Tyson is my era of boxers I've seen coming up. And it was very disappointing to see him fight like that. And I was just like, why? Like, why? My idol, I don't want to see him in a ring looking like that. I want I want to see him just the way he ended, like that hard, get to knockouts and like. And I don't think it's a flex that you beat a 58-year-old.
It's not a flex for Jake Paul.
It's not a flex. But then I saw Mike Tyson's post where he said it was a win-win for him.
Yes, it was.
And it was his way to fight back from his health scare that he had, where he almost died and he lost all that weight. And so then I was like, okay, it makes sense. Plus, he got paid $20 million.
He got paid $20 million. That's the bottom line. He got paid $20 million. Now, our heroes maybe shouldn't be having to do certain things or having to prove themselves at this age for money. But look, he's Mike Tyson. So when I saw it, and I kind of had this feeling, I was rooting for Mike. I really wanted him to win. I really wanted the 58-year-old to win. I was like, yes, please, show these kids we still got it.
Yeah, okay.
But we don't. In certain things, right? He's wiser. And I appreciated when Jake Paul kind of bowed to him. And once he did that, I knew what it was. I was like, oh, okay, this is like a show. But look, it was a great show. You got to see Tyson's ass cheeks on TV, on Netflix.
It wasn't a great show for me. It was grainy. It was my idol.
But I mean, in terms of like what he was able to do.
He looked like me fighting in there.
Yeah, but what he was
the bad shoulder and
but what he was able to do. My kids watched that fight. You know what I'm saying? My kids actually watched that fight.
Watched that fight.
So it was like they were introduced to Tyson.
But that wasn't a fight. That
I
was
know,
not
but it's
Mike
like a
Tyson
show.
fight.
It was like a show. It was
not
like a
Mike
little
Tyson
show.
fight.
Let's break Netflix and the numbers, and let's go viral on social media. But hey, let's also make $20 million. So,
I don't know.
I hated to see him not win. I wish that he had been.
I hated to see
able to
him
win.
like that in general. I did not want my last memories of Mike Tyson like he was fighting like me.
I mean, but we're older. We're aging. I think that it's great that he was able to do it.
Yeah, I think it was great that he was able to get back in shape and use.
How many 58-year-olds can really, even if it was fake, even if it was,
my mom.
how many 58-year-olds can
Yo, my
do
mom be swearing she could still fight, and she loves to pop off. And I'd be like, lady, you're 65. These young kids will whoop you under this rug and not care 2 cents. Okay?
Well,
She always threatening somebody.
I got a mouth on me, but I do know, like when I was parking here in the Bronx, I'm pulling up and I'm like driving and parking, and I Jersey drive now, so I drive like kind of slow. And New York is like,
they was beeping a horn at you?
and this girl got so mad, and she pulled up next to me, right? And I have all the smoke with the window up. Yeah. I'm like, in the car. But then I thought about it, I was like, I hope she don't get out, because I ain't got it in me right now, and I got a schedule, and I can talk tough.
Yeah.
And I know I will do it if I need to do it. But why do it?
Right.
Like, I don't want to fight you. I just want to park in the spot.
Right.
But she had smoke for me, but she kept going.
Yeah.
She kept going. But anyway, I'm happy you're back.
I'm happy to be back.
I know we have to wrap, and I just wanted to definitely thank you for pushing through today, because it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And sometimes it, it takes a lot to push through. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I love about you, because I know women like us who have put so much time in, we understand that. And it's a different thing. Like I work with a lot of people, different age groups, different experience levels. And sometimes I find it funny, like if I plan something and something comes up and they can't make it. It's almost like in my mind, I don't hold them to that standard that I have for myself, right? But in my mind, I'm like, really, you couldn't come because of that? Like, I try not to judge. But we have that work ethic in us, that 90s built us type of thing.
Yeah.
When you would yesterday, you were like, no, I'm like, they cut your tongue? And you're like, but I'm going to be there. But you could barely talk.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm going to be there. I said, Titi's going to push through.
I was like dying.
I know, but you did push through. Thank you.
I did push through.
Thank you.
Sorry if I sound crazy. Hopefully by Thanksgiving, my mouth will be better. I'm cooking for 20 people, by the way. 20 people.
And next time, let's talk about Grammys.
Yes.
Next time we come, let's talk about Grammys. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Kim Osorio 1, on Instagram at Kim Osorio Media, on YouTube.
TT Torrez, 3 T's, ORREZ. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube page. And follow me on Blue Sky. I just created my Blue Sky account. So make sure you guys follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram and all the other social media platforms, TikTok
Follow us
and all
everywhere.
of that. Yeah.
It's so hard. And my name is not spelled with any A's. It's KIMOSORIO, the number 1 on Instagram, and Kim Osorio Media on YouTube. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. Trigger Warning Podcast.
Bye.
We back. I feel good though.